Lucas Maddox didn't expect his day to start with a flat tire, a crying 5-year-old in the backseat, and a girl yelling from a ditch. "Hey, can someone help me? My bike's stuck." He glanced over his shoulder, squinting at the sound. On the side of the country road, just past the edge of the tall grass, a woman waved her arms frantically next to a crooked bicycle half submerged in a muddy ditch. Her helmet was askew, one sneaker missing, and her white t-shirt smeared with dirt. Lucas sighed, shifted the truck into park, and looked back at the tiny voice behind him. "Stay right here, Maya. I'll be quick." His daughter nodded, still sniffling from the earlier tantrum over the lack of juice boxes. He jogged toward the woman, boots crunching gravel. "You all right?" "Do I look all right?" She shot back, trying to tug her bike free. "Hit a rock and flew like a cartoon character. My handlebars are probably in another dimension." He bit back a laugh. "Here," he said. He stepped down into the mud and gripped the bike frame. With one solid yank, the thing popped free, splattering his jeans. She blinked. "Wow, okay, that was kind of impressive." Lucas shrugged. "Used to lifting heavier things. You good to walk?" "I think so," she said, brushing hair from her face. I'm good." He glanced at the scuffed skin on her elbow. "You sure? You're bleeding." She looked down and winced. "Ugh, that's gonna leave a mark." "I've got a first aid kit in the truck." "I don't want to be a bother." "You're already a bother. Might as well let me finish the job." Her eyes narrowed, then she laughed. It was quick and unexpected, and for a second, Lucas forgot the dent in his wallet, the overdue electric bill, and the fact that Maya had outgrown her shoes again. "I'm Juliet," she said, offering her hand. "Lucas, that's my daughter in the truck." Juliet followed his gaze to the little girl pressing her nose against the window. "She's adorable." "She's a terrorist," Lucas muttered. "Come on, let's get you patched up." Back at the truck, Maya stared wide-eyed at the stranger Lucas introduced as Miss Juliet. While he cleaned her elbow, Juliet chatted with Maya like they'd known each other for months. "I like your sticker book," Juliet said, pointing to the pile in Maya's lap. "I got it from the grocery store. Daddy says we can't buy the ones with glitter because they're too expensive." Lucas cleared his throat. "All right, kid, that's enough truth-telling." Juliet chuckled, then looked back at him. "This your only car?" "Yeah, got a flat this morning. I was headed to a buddy's to borrow his jack before I found you screaming in the woods." "I wasn't screaming." "You definitely were." She sighed. "Okay, maybe a little." Maya piped up. "Are you a princess?" Juliet blinked. No." "You look like one." Lucas grinned. "She fell in a ditch, Maya." "Still pretty," Maya said matter-of-factly. Juliet's cheeks flushed. "Well, thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me today." Lucas glanced at her again. She was still a mess mud-stained, bruised, and half-limping, but there was something easy about her. Like she belonged standing next to his truck, laughing with his kid, which made no sense. Rich girls didn't get stuck in ditches, on back roads, in the middle of nowhere. "Where were you headed?" he asked. She hesitated. "Just out for a ride. I'm staying at a rental house down the road." "By the lake?" "Yeah." He whistled. "That place's gotta cost a fortune." Juliet shrugged. "My friend booked it. I needed a break." Lucas didn't push. He knew what it was like to need a break. "All right," he said, standing. "I'll drive you back. Your leg's not gonna love walking." "You sure?" "Yes, I've got a car seat in the back, and you're not that much taller than Maya." "You're hilarious." But she climbed in anyway, and within minutes, they were rumbling down the road, Maya humming to herself while Juliet pointed out birds and trees like she was on a school field trip. When he pulled up in front of the lake house, Lucas raised a brow. Friend must be real generous. Juliet gave a small laugh. Yeah, she is. All right, you need anything else? Tow truck doctor, backup princess gown. Actually, she said, unbuckling, I was wondering if I could buy you guys dinner. Lucas blinked. What? You helped me. I want to return the favor. There's a place in town, right? The diner. He hesitated. Juliet, you don't have to. I want to, please. You saved my life. I saved your bike. Same thing. He exhaled. Fine, but just burgers. Maya's got early school and I've got work tomorrow. Juliet smiled. Burgers it is. That night, the three of them sat in a booth at the town's only diner. Maya coloring on a placemat, while Juliet ordered milkshakes for all three of them. Lucas watched her across the table. Something tugged at him. She was too calm, too polished beneath the dirt. And when she paid the bill, she used a black credit card, the kind only rich people carried. He noticed. She didn't mention it. Still, she asked about Maya's favorite cartoon, and she laughed at his terrible dad jokes. And when she helped Maya zip her coat in the parking lot, Lucas caught the look in her eyes. Warm, familiar, like maybe she wasn't just some girl in a ditch. Like maybe she was supposed to be here. But that was ridiculous. Juliet waved goodbye with a "see you around," and Lucas nodded, not sure if he meant it. Because women like her didn't stick around. And guys like him, they didn't get lucky twice. Lucas didn't expect to see Juliet again, especially not 2 days later standing on the porch of the auto shop where he worked, holding a paper bag and looking like she'd been born with perfect posture and expensive secrets. Do you usually bring lunch to mechanics? He asked, wiping his hands on a faded rag as he stepped out from the garage. She lifted the bag, only the ones who rescue damsels in distress. I pulled you out of a ditch, not a dragon's lair. Close enough, and besides, this is a bribe. He raised an eyebrow. For what? To let me hang around. I'm bored out of my mind at that lake house. Lucas glanced over his shoulder at the open garage. You want to spend the afternoon watching oil changes and tire rotations. I'd rather do that than sit in silence trying to pretend like yoga. You don't even have a car. I have legs and a bike, sort of. He exhaled. All right, you can sit by the front desk, but if my boss asks, you're my cousin from out of town, he doesn't like visitors. Duly noted, cousin. Inside, she perched on the edge of the counter while he returned to a rusted-out truck in the bay. She watched him work, her gaze lingering on the way his arms moved beneath the grease-stained shirt. He didn't speak again until he'd finished replacing a serpentine belt. You're really not from around here, he said, wiping his forehead. Was it the shoes? She asked, glancing down at pristine white sneakers. It was the way you said yoga like it personally offended you. Juliet laughed. I grew up in Connecticut, private schools, summer programs in Italy, all of it. But after my dad died last fall, I started, I don't know, questioning things. Lucas leaned against the hood. Like what? Like whether being born into money means I'm supposed to pretend, enjoy wine tastings and gala dinners. I needed a break from all of it. He didn't ask how much money, he didn't need to. Instead, he said, so you ran off to the middle of nowhere. I booked the lake house under a friend's name. No one knows I'm here, not even my assistant. You have an assistant. Think she quit when I stopped answering emails. Lucas grabbed the bag she'd brought and pulled out 2 sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. So, you're hiding. I'm reevaluating. Is that a rich person word for hiding? Don't be mean, I brought chips. He chuckled quietly and handed her one of the sandwiches. They sat in silence for a while, the distant hum of tools and engines filling the space. Eventually, Juliet turned toward him. "Do you own this place?" Lucas shook his head. "Nah, just work here. I pick up side jobs to make ends meet. I'm good with my hands." She tilted her head. "You want to do this forever?" "No, but it's what I've got right now. Maya's starting kindergarten next year, and I want her in the best school can afford." Juliet nodded slowly. "You know, it could." "No," Lucas cut in before she could finish. "Don't offer. I don't want your money." "I wasn't." "You were, just don't." She looked down at her sandwich. "Okay." The silence stretched again, heavier this time. After a while, he stood, brushing crumbs from his jeans. "I've gotta finish up here. You want to come by the house after? Maya's been asking about you." Juliet smiled faintly. "Yeah, I'd like that." That evening, Juliet sat on the floor of Lucas's living room, building a tower of mismatched blocks with Maya while Lucas cooked in the adjacent kitchen. The house was small 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a crooked porch, but it was warm and alive in a way Juliet hadn't felt in ages. "Do you have a little girl too?" Meyer asked as she balanced a block on top of the tower. "No, sweetie, I don't have any kids." "Why not?" Juliet paused. "I guess I've been too busy with work." "What do you do?" Lucas looked over from the stove. "Maya." "It's okay," Juliet said gently. "I used to run a luxury travel company. You know, the kind of place that plans trips for people who want to sleep in glass igloos in Finland or take helicopters to private vineyards." Maya's eyes widened. "That sounds like magic." Juliet smiled. "It used to feel like it, but then it just felt like pressure." Lucas brought over 3 plates and set them on the coffee table. "Hope you like pasta. It's the only thing Maya will eat without a fight." "It's perfect," Juliet said. They ate together, Maya chattering between bites about a school project involving dinosaurs and glitter glue. Juliet listened closely, asking questions, leaning into the rhythm of their tiny world like she belonged there. Lucas watched the way Maya reached for her hand without hesitation. How Juliet didn't flinch. After Maya fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie, Lucas carried her to bed, then returned to find Juliet standing on the back porch, arms wrapped loosely around herself. He joined her, careful not to let the screen door slam. "You okay?" She nodded. "It's quiet here." "You say that like it's a bad thing." "It's not, it's just different." They stood in silence, the sound of frogs echoing from the woods. Then Juliet turned. "Do you ever wonder if you're letting life pass by because you're too scared to want something bigger?" Lucas didn't look away. "Every damn day." She stepped closer. "And what do you do about it?" "I make sure Maya has a roof over her head and food on the table. That's what I do." Juliet looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what about you?" Lucas didn't answer. The air between them shifted, thick with something unspoken. A question they weren't ready to ask, a truth neither of them wanted to admit. Then Juliet stepped back. "I should go." He nodded. "Yeah, it's late." "I'll come by tomorrow, if that's okay." Lucas hesitated, then said, "Yeah, it's okay." She left without another word, and Lucas stood on the porch long after her taillights disappeared down the road. He didn't know what this was. But whatever it was starting to feel dangerous. And he wasn't sure if he had the strength to walk away. Juliet didn't knock the next time. She sat on the porch steps instead, a bag of peaches beside her and her eyes fixed on the horizon like she was waiting for something to shift in the sky. Lucas spotted her as he pulled into the driveway after dropping Meyer off at school. He parked, left the truck running for a moment, then killed the engine and stepped out. You know, he said, most people text first. Juliet didn't look up. Figured if I gave you time to come up with an excuse, you might use it. He dropped his keys into his pocket. You're not wrong. She finally turned her head. I brought fruit. It's not a bribe this time. Lucas sat beside her. The morning air was still cool, and a breeze carried the scent of pine and lake water. He didn't reach for a peach. Something happened. I talked to my brother, she said, voice low. He found out where I was. Someone posted a photo of me at the diner. Lucas frowned. You have people tracking you. Not officially. But when you're listed in society pages for most of your life, people tend to notice when you vanish. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. What'd he say? Juliet picked at the edge of the paper bag. He told me to stop playing house and come home. Said I was embarrassing the family. Lucas didn't respond right away. Then, is that what this is to you? Playing house? No, she said quickly. That's what scares me. He looked at her then, really looked. The tension in her shoulders, the way her hands trembled just slightly. She wasn't here because she was curious. She was here because she was running from something that had clawed at her for far too long. I don't know how to do this, she said. I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who smile with their mouths and lie with their eyes. You and Maya, you're so real, it makes my skin hurt. We're not a vacation, he said quietly. I know that. He stood, pushing his hands through his hair. Then, what do you want, Juliet? Because can't keep letting Maya get attached if you're just gonna disappear. I don't want to disappear. Then stop acting like it's inevitable. She rose, stepping toward him. I've never had anything like this before, not with anyone, and it terrifies me. Lucas's voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. You think I'm not scared too? You think I'm not lying awake at night wondering what the hell I'm doing, letting someone who doesn't even know what it means to struggle get this close to my daughter? As he flinched, I didn't mean it like that, he muttered. No, it's okay. You're right. I don't know. I've never had to worry about rent or whether I could afford new shoes for a growing kid. But I do know what it feels like to be alone in a room full of people. To have everything and still feel like I have nothing. Lucas looked at her for a long moment, then he nodded toward the truck. You want to come with me to pick her up? Juliet exhaled. Yeah, I do. At the school, Maya ran straight into Juliet's arms, chattering about a field trip to a farm and how she got to pet a goat named Pancake. Lucas watched them from the sidewalk, the edge of something sharp and unfamiliar pressing into his chest. Later that afternoon, while Maya napped on the couch with a stuffed elephant clutched to her chest, Juliet wandered into the kitchen where Lucas was scrubbing dishes. You ever think about leaving this town? She asked. He didn't look at her. Sometimes. What stops you? Money, Maya, familiarity, take your pick. She hesitated. If you could do anything, what would it be? Lucas set a plate on the drying rack. I used to sketch houses when I was a kid. Floor plans, elevations, all of it. Thought maybe I'd be an architect someday. Juliet leaned against the counter. What happened? Life. My dad bailed, my mom worked 2 jobs, and I dropped out of college when Maya was born. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I know a firm in Chicago, one of the best. They do community-based design projects. I could make a call. Lucas turned to her. Don't. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a connection. Same thing. No, she said, stepping closer. It's not. I believe in you, and I want to help the people I care about. He stared at her. What are you doing, Juliet? She blinked. What do you mean? Are you staying? Are you leaving? Are you just trying to fix things so you don't have to feel guilty when you go? Juliet's voice cracked. I don't know. That's not good enough. I want to be good enough, she whispered. Lucas didn't answer. He walked past her, grabbing a towel to dry his hands. The silence between them stretched until it nearly broke. Then a knock came at the door. Lucas opened it to find a tall man in a navy suit standing on the porch, a tablet in one hand and a thin smile on his face. Behind him, a black SUV idled by the curb. "MS, Calloway," the man said, spotting Juliet behind Lucas. "Your brother sent me. He's waiting in New York. He insists you return immediately." Juliet's face went pale. "I didn't ask for him." "He didn't need an invitation." Lucas stepped forward, his voice cold. "She's not going anywhere she doesn't choose to." The man raised an eyebrow. "I'm afraid that's not your decision to make." Juliet swallowed hard. "Give me a minute," she said, stepping outside and closing the door behind her. Lucas stood frozen in the kitchen, hands clenched at his sides. When she came back in, her face was unreadable. "I need to go," she said. He nodded once. "Of course you do. But I'll come back." "Don't promise that if you can't keep it." Her eyes shone. "I don't make promises I don't intend to keep." She bent to kiss Maya's forehead, her hands lingering for a moment in the girl's curls. Then she turned to Lucas. "I don't want to go back to the world it came from, but I have unfinished things to deal with." Lucas didn't speak. "I'll come back," she said again. "For her, for you, for myself." Then she was gone. And for the first time in years, Lucas felt the ache of something he hadn't let himself want. Hope. The first snow fell 2 weeks after Juliet left. Lucas stood on his porch in the early morning hush, coffee cooling in his hand, watching the frost gather on the mailbox. Maya's boots left a trail of tiny prints behind her as she ran across the yard toward the school bus, her coat zipped up to her chin. He waved, then stayed there long after the bus disappeared down the road. No word, no calls, no sign of Juliet. He told himself not to expect anything, but some part of him still listened for footsteps on the porch, still looked up when the wind chime rattled, hoping it was her. The silence was beginning to feel permanent. He focused on work. He took extra shifts, rewired engines, fixed broken transmissions. He helped Maya with her alphabet homework and taught her how to tie her shoes without bunny ears. He filled the days so completely there was no room left to miss her out loud. But at night, when the house settled into stillness, he'd catch himself glancing at the empty space on the couch. The one she used to sit in, legs tucked under her, laughing at Maya's lopsided drawings like they were masterpieces. He never let himself dwell too long. He couldn't afford to. Then, on a Friday in late December, he stepped into the auto shop and froze. There, standing at the front counter, wearing a wool coat and holding a wrapped package in both hands, was Juliet. She looked different. More grounded, less polished. Her hair was pulled back into a loose braid, and there was a thin scar along her wrist he hadn't seen before, but her eyes, those stayed the same. Steady, sure. Lucas didn't move. Juliet set the package on the counter. "You're hard to track down when you don't answer your door." "I didn't expect to see you again." "I didn't want to come until had something real to say." He stepped forward slowly, "Then say it." She drew in a breath. "I left because I needed to end things on my terms, not just with my family, but with the life I was pretending to want. I sold the company." Lucas blinked. "You what?" "I sold the travel business, cut ties with the board. I told my brother I wouldn't be a name on a guest list anymore. I'm starting over." He stared at her, trying to make sense of the words. "I used the money to fund a program," she continued. "Scholarships for single parents who want to go back to school, trade programs, architecture degrees. You were the reason I thought of it." Lucas's mouth parted, but nothing came out. "I know you didn't want my help," she added quickly, "so this isn't about you. It's bigger than that. But if you ever wanted to use it to finish what you started." He stepped around the counter and kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't careful. It happened in a rush of breath and warmth and the press of her hands into his chest like she'd never left. Like the space between them had only ever been temporary. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers. "I didn't need your money," he said softly, "but I missed you like hell." "I missed you more." He pulled away just enough to look at her. "You really sold everything." "I don't want a life that looks good but feels hollow. I want one that feels like this." He exhaled, his voice rough. "Come home." She smiled. "I already did." Later that afternoon, Lucas stood in the living room, watching as Maya tore the wrapping off the package Juliet had brought. Inside was a sketchbook, thick and bound in leather, and a set of pencils arranged in a row. "For Daddy?" Meyer asked, eyes wide. "For both of you," Juliet said, "so you can build things together." Lucas didn't speak. He sat beside Maya and flipped open the first page. Then, slowly, he began to draw. That night, after Maya fell asleep curled under a blanket of stars on her ceiling, Lucas walked out to the porch. Juliet joined him a moment later, 2 mugs in hand. "You know," he said, taking one, "you never really told me what made you come back." She looked out at the snow-covered yard. "I woke up one morning in New York, surrounded by things that used to mean everything. But all I could think about was a little girl who thought I was a princess and a man who pulled my bike out of a ditch without asking who I was." Lucas smiled. "You left out the part where I insulted you immediately after." She nudged him with her shoulder. "I liked that part." He turned toward her. "You sure about this, about us?" Juliet met his gaze. "I've never been more sure of anything." Weeks passed, then months. Juliet didn't just stay, she built a life here. She helped the local library start a literacy program. She planted a garden behind the house with Maya, who announced to everyone that she was growing flowers for the wedding. Lucas proposed on a quiet evening, kneeling in the middle of the living room with a ring he'd saved for behind the shop's tool cabinet. Juliet didn't cry. She just said yes and kissed him like it was the only answer she'd ever known. They married in the spring. No ballroom, no orchestra, just a lake, a handful of neighbors, and a little girl in a yellow dress scattering petals in the grass. Lucas wore a suit that didn't quite fit. Juliet walked barefoot down the hill. And when they said their vows, it wasn't about promises to be perfect. It was about choosing each other again, and again, no matter what life threw at them. Later that night, when the stars came out, Lucas carried Maya to bed and returned to find Juliet waiting on the porch. He wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her close. "You ever miss it?" he asked. "The money. The world you left." She tilted her head against his shoulder, not for a second. He kissed her temple. They stood there in the quiet, watching the fireflies rise. And for the first time in either of their lives, everything just felt right. The morning sun filtered through gauzy curtains, casting golden streaks across the wooden floorboards. Juliet stood in the kitchen barefoot, her fingers dusted with flour as she rolled out dough on the counter. Lucas came in still half-dressed, his shirt unbuttoned and his tie draped around his neck. "Did you just make biscuits from scratch?" he asked, eyeing the tray she was loading into the oven. "I couldn't sleep," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek with her wrist. "Thought I'd try something new." He leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "You're turning dangerously domestic. Should I be worried?" Juliet lifted an eyebrow. "As long as you don't expect me to start canning peaches." You already planted a tomato garden. We're halfway to a homestead. She laughed, warm and unguarded, and he crossed to her, sliding his arms around her waist from behind. You smell like butter, he murmured. I smell like I've been awake since 5. He kissed her shoulder. I'm not complaining. She tilted her head back against him. We have to leave by 10. Maya has her presentation at school. He groaned. Right, community helpers. She's still going with architect, isn't she? She made a cardboard model of a city park. It's actually better than anything I've seen proposed for downtown. Lucas chuckled and rested his chin on her head. She asked me last night if buildings could be shaped like stars. You told her they could, right? I said anything's possible with the right blueprint and a lot of stubbornness. Juliet turned to face him, flour smudged across her cheek. You know, when I was little, I wanted to be a painter. My mother told me art was for people who couldn't do math. Lucas wiped the flour from her skin with the pad of his thumb. She ever see what you're capable of? Juliet shook her head. She never really looked. He studied her face. You're not them, you never were. I know that now, she said quietly. They got dressed, packed Maya's model into a box, and drove to the school with the windows down and the radio humming. Maya greeted them at the door, her ponytail bouncing as she waved them toward the classroom. Inside, tiny desks were lined in uneven rows, and parents filled the folding chairs at the back. Maya stood confidently beside her cardboard display, her voice clear as she explained her design. She pointed to the miniature trees and benches, then to the paper cut out of a playground with a real swing made from string. My daddy builds things, she said proudly, and my mom helps people find places to feel like home. Juliet blinked. Lucas reached for her hand without a word. After the presentation, Maya ran to them, cheeks flushed with excitement. Did I do good? You were amazing, Juliet said, kneeling to hug her. You sounded like a real city planner. Aunt Leela said she wants to live in my park, Maya added. Lucas ruffled her hair. Tell Aunt Leela we'll send her a lease agreement. That evening, with Maya asleep upstairs and a fire crackling in the living room, Juliet curled up beside Lucas on the couch. She rested her head on his chest, fingers tracing idle circles along the seam of his shirt. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't crashed into that ditch? She asked. We would have met somewhere else, he said simply. How do you know? Because you were always supposed to find me. She closed her eyes, letting the rhythm of his heartbeat settle her. I used to think love had to come with conditions, like you had to earn it by being perfect, or rich, or useful. Lucas held her tighter. Not here. No, she whispered, not here. A few days later, they stood before the town council, papers in hand and nerves fluttering just beneath their skin. Lucas had submitted a proposal to redesign the public park. Maya's idea had inspired more than just a school project. Juliet had helped him navigate the paperwork, quietly reaching out to contacts who could offer grants, but never stepping in front of him. He presented alone, clear, focused, steady. Afterward, the council voted unanimously to approve the plan. Outside the hall, Lucas turned to Juliet, stunned. They actually said yes. I told you, she said, eyes shining. You've always had it in you. He kissed her in the middle of the sidewalk, not caring who saw. She laughed as he pulled away. Your daughter is going to tell everyone her dad's building a park with rocket slides. Then I better make it happen. They celebrated with dinner at the diner, where it all began. Maya ordered a double milkshake with sprinkles, and Juliet wore the same necklace Lucas had given her on their wedding day, a single, small diamond set in a gold band shaped like a crescent moon. It wasn't flashy, but it was hers. Afterward, Lucas drove them home, his hand resting on Juliet's knee, the road familiar and quiet. In the months that followed, the park broke ground. Lucas hired local workers, trained 2 apprentices, and taught weekend classes at the community center. Juliet took over project coordination, working with schools, nonprofits, and families to make sure the space served everyone. Maya helped paint murals on the walls of the new rec building. The town watched them not with suspicion, but with the kind of warmth that comes from seeing something real grow from the roots up. Juliet's brother never called again. She didn't need him to. By summer, the park was finished. On opening day, Maya cut the ribbon with a pair of oversized scissors wearing a hard hat and a badge that read Junior Architect. The playground shimmered in the sun, the star-shaped pavilion casting dappled light across the grass. Juliet stood beside Lucas as children raced down the slides, and parents clapped from picnic tables. "You gave them something they didn't know they needed," she said. Lucas looked down at her. "So did you." They walked hand in hand across the field, the sound of laughter trailing behind them like music. Their life wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. But it was theirs. And it was everything.